It's 2024. You wake up, grab your phone, and before you've even had coffee, you've likely seen 5 headlines, 3 outrage clips, and a dozen opinions on a topic you didn't know existed yesterday. We are drowning in information, but somehow it feels like we're starving for actual wisdom.
Exactly. We've traded depth for speed. It's like we're all at an all-you-can-eat buffet of data, but we're malnourished because we aren't digesting any of it.
Welcome back to the show. I'm Jake, and today we are slowing down. We're talking about something that feels like an endangered species these days, independent thinking. And to help me break this down, I'm joined by Rachel. Rachel, the prompt for today is this idea that we've become reactors rather than thinkers. What's your gut reaction to that?
My gut reaction is that it's undeniably true, but it's not entirely our fault, at least not initially. We have to look at the architecture of the environment we live in. The attention autonomy is specifically engineered to bypass the prefrontal cortex, the logical reasoning part of your brain, and go straight to the amygdala, the emotional center.
The fight or flight response.
Right. Fear, anger, outrage. Those are high arousal emotions. A study from NYU actually analyzed over 500,000 tweets and found that for every moral emotional word used in a tweet, words like attack, bad, or blame, the retweet rate increased by about 20%. The algorithm rewards reaction, not reflection.
That's wild. So if I write a nuanced, thoughtful paragraph about a complex issue, it gets buried. But if I shout something angry, I get the microphone?
Precisely. And this creates a feedback loop. We see that outrage gets attention, so we subconsciously learn that outrage equals importance. But independent thinking, the act of saying, wait, is this actually true, is inherently slow. It's boring. It doesn't get the dopamine hit.
It's interesting you mentioned speed. The user's text we're basing this on says wisdom has never rushed. But let's play devil's advocate here. In a world where news breaks every second, don't we need to be fast? If there's a crisis, isn't independent thinking just stalling?
That's a common misconception. There is a difference between situational awareness, knowing a hurricane is coming and you need to evacuate, and forming a complex sociological opinion based on a 30-second clip. Most of the things we react to online aren't immediate survival threats. They are social signals. When we rush to have an opinion on a geopolitical conflict or a court case 5 minutes after the news breaks, that's not survival. That's signaling. We are rushing to show our tribe, hey, I'm on the right team.
It's the fear of silence. If I don't post, do I even care?
Yes, and that fear drives us to outsource our thinking. We look for the loudest voice, as the text puts it, and we just copy-paste their opinion because it feels safe. It's intellectually lazy, but it feels emotionally safe.
Let's look at the history of this. Was there ever a golden age of independent thinking? Because I feel like people have always been susceptible to propaganda. I mean, look at the printing press or yellow journalism in the 19th century.
Oh, absolutely. Humans are herd animals. We haven't biologically changed much in thousands of years, but the velocity has changed. In the era of yellow journalism, think William Randolph Hearst in the 1890s, you had to go buy the paper. You read it, maybe you argued with your neighbor. There was friction in the transmission of information.
You had time to cool off between reading the headline and telling your friend about it.
Exactly. Now the friction is gone. The time between feeling an emotion and broadcasting that emotion to thousands of people is measured in milliseconds. That lack of friction is what's killing the independent thought process. We are skipping the verification step entirely.
So let's break down that verification step. The text suggests asking, is this true? Who is the source? What is their motive? That sounds simple, almost remedial, but nobody does it. Why?
Because it's cognitive labor. Thinking is actually calorically expensive for the brain. It's easier to use a heuristic, a mental shortcut. I like this person, they posted it, therefore it's true. To stop and verify requires you to potentially prove yourself wrong, and nobody likes that feeling. It's called confirmation bias, but it's deeper than that. It's identity protection. If I find out this viral story about the other side is fake, I have to admit that my side isn't perfect.
That hurts. It physically hurts the ego.
It does, but that's where the responsibility comes in. The text mentions Colossians 3:2, set your affection on things above. Regardless of your religious background, the principle is about detaching from the immediate chaos. It's about taking a balcony view. If you are constantly in the mosh pit of the comments section, you can't see the pattern of the music. You just get pushed around.
I love the mosh pit analogy. So independent thinking isn't just about being smart. It's about emotional regulation. It's checking your pulse before you check the comments.
100%. Let's look at a technical example. Deepfakes and AI-generated content. We are entering an era where seeing literally cannot be believing anymore. If you see a video of a politician saying something outrageous, your immediate reaction might be anger. Independent thinking in 2024 means pausing and saying, is the lighting weird? Is the audio syncing? Let me check a second source. That pause is the only defense we have against manipulation.
And that leads to the cultural impact. If we lose this art, what happens to society? The text says, the more we allow headlines to divide us, the more we forget what unites us. That feels very heavy. Are we looking at a permanent fracture?
We are looking at a fragmentation of reality. If you and I cannot agree on a baseline set of facts, because we are both reacting to different, emotionally charged, unverified streams of information, we can't govern a society together. We can't even be neighbors. We start seeing the other not as people with different opinions, but as existential threats. That's the danger of the outrage industrial complex.
But isn't there a risk on the other side? Can independent thinking morph into cynicism? You know, the people who reject everything mainstream just to be contrarian. The Earth is flat because NASA is lying. That's technically independent thinking, isn't it?
That is such a crucial distinction. The text says independent thinking doesn't mean rejecting everything, it means refusing to accept everything without homework. Contrarianism, rejecting something just because it's popular, is just another form of dependency. You're still letting the mainstream dictate your position. You're just taking the inverse. True independent thinking is neutral. It's agnostic until the evidence arrives. It's being willing to agree with the mainstream if the facts are there, and willing to dissent if they aren't.
So it's not about being a rebel, it's about being a judge. You have to look at the evidence regardless of who brings it into the courtroom.
Right, and realizing that the truth is often boring, gray, and nuanced. It rarely fits in a tweet. Real life is messy. If a headline makes you feel 100% vindicated and pure righteous anger, that's a red flag. Real truth usually makes everyone a little bit uncomfortable.
Let's pivot to the solution. The user writes, pause. Ask yourself, who is the source? What is their motive? How do we actually operationalize this? Because in the heat of the moment, I'm not thinking about my amygdala. I'm thinking, look at what this guy just did.
It requires friction. You have to manufacture the friction that technology stripped away. Here's a practical rule, the 24-hour rule. If you see something that makes you incredibly angry or scared, wait 24 hours before you share it or comment on it. In that 24 hours, usually more context comes out. Corrections are issued, the full video is released. If it's still true and important tomorrow, it'll still be there. But 90% of the time, the emotion fades and you realize it wasn't worth your peace.
That's good. It's like a cooling off period for your brain. What about the source and motive question? How do regular people vet sources?
You follow the money and the incentive. If an account is named Patriot Eagle 2024 or Socialist Warrior X, their motive is likely ideological reinforcement, not nuanced reporting. If a website is covered in ads for survival gear or sketchy supplements, their motive is to scare you into buying things. Reliable sources usually cite their sources. They say, according to the police report, or the data from the study shows, rather than just making assertions.
So look for the receipts. If they don't show the receipts, don't buy the product.
Exactly, and diversify your inputs. If you only follow people who vote like you, pray like you, and look like you are in an echo chamber. Independent thinking requires cross-pollination. Read an article from a source you disagree with, not to get angry, but to understand the argument. You might realize, oh, they aren't evil, they just prioritize X over Y. That humanizes the other side.
That brings us back to the unity aspect. The more we allow headlines and posts to divide us, the more we forget what unites us. It seems like independent thinking is actually an act of empathy.
It is, because when you stop reacting, you start listening. When you strip away the sensationalist headline, you often find a human story underneath. Maybe someone isn't attacking family values. Maybe they are struggling with a complex personal situation. Maybe someone isn't destroying the planet. Maybe they are trying to keep their business afloat in a tough economy. Nuance breeds compassion. Generalization breeds hate.
It's about being responsible. I really liked that line. Independent thinking is not about being right, it's about being responsible. Responsible with our words.
Think of information like a diet. We are currently eating junk food, highly processed, designed to be addictive, zero nutritional value. Independent thinking is choosing to cook a meal. It takes longer, you have to chop the vegetables, you have to check the ingredients, but it nourishes you. And when you share that meal, that well-thought-out opinion with others, you're feeding them something healthy, not just passing around a bag of chips.
And just like a healthy diet leads to a healthy body, a diet of truth leads to a grounded soul, as the text says.
We underestimate how much anxiety comes from the noise. When you are constantly reacting, your nervous system is fried. You feel out of control. Stepping back, verifying, pausing, that reclaims your agency. You are no longer a puppet on a string for every algorithm. You are the driver again. That is peace.
It's reclaiming your mind. As we wrap up, Rachel, if someone is listening to this and realizing, wow, I am a chronic reactor, what is the one small step they can take today?
Turn off breaking news notifications. Seriously. Unless you are a first responder or a stock trader, you do not need to know anything the second it happens. Let the world turn for a few hours without your supervision. Reclaim that mental space.
Truth over trends, understanding over outrage. It's a choice we have to make every single time we unlock our phones. Rachel, thanks for helping us unpack this.
My pleasure, Jake. Thanks for having me.
And thank you for listening. Remember, a healthy mind begins with a simple choice. Think before you react. We'll see you next time.